Okay, good morning everybody. I've had some requests to video and highlight some of the things that I'm doing with my Sump to show, I guess, the basic operation. So bear with me while I try and explain all of this. What you're looking at here is the CPR Overflow. This is a model 202, I believe, if I can remember correctly. And it's so called because it has two 1-inch drains. Right, so that would be the 202, and here you see the Tom's Aqua Lifter pump, which I will explain in a minute. Here you can see the profile of it. It doesn't really take up that much space, and in tank, it's not that bad at all. See, it's very, very thin. Here you can see, I apologize for the algae and discoloration, but you can see the teeth on the weir, and then the black background makes it less visible, and you can see it's not even that deep in the tank, so it doesn't take up a large footprint at all. The Aqua Lifter pump is actually a dosing pump. Please do not confuse it with a simple air pump, because this has a dual operation. You'll see here that there's two hoses. There's this black one here, which goes actually to the CPR Overflow itself and creates the suction for the siphon, which keeps the overflow itself running. The other blue tube is the discharge from that, so it will suck up any air and also water and discharge it, and you want to put that back either into the tank or into the sump or wherever you'd like, because it will spit water and air, as you'll see here. Right, it's mostly air, as you can see, but you will get some water occasionally. Sorry about getting out of focus. What I did here is, because I have two cats, I use zip ties to tie the Aqua Lifter pump to the CPR Overflow, and that's been 3 or 4 months and it hasn't moved from what I can see, so that's working well. Here you see the actual operation of the overflow. It's a very gentle water flow. Now when I have the spigots fully open, you can see here the sponge filters, the pre-filters as they're called, and these are over the intakes, and you can just take these out and just rinse them, and that will help the flow a lot. Okay, so here you see these are the bulkheads that come with the unit, and that's how you would attach your intake hoses to connect to the sump. So you can see the water here. It doesn't fill up the box at all, but if you were to reduce the flow to the pump and different things like that, or clog the weir, you would see this back up. Or when these sponges get dirty, you'll see the water level rise, and that's a good indicator to know that something, needs some maintenance. Oops, sorry about that. Here you can see where I connected, I used some regular PVC tubing. I did not glue this, that's just slip. And here I have these gate valves to help me control, how much the siphons are open, to help control noise if I so desire, or to shut them off for maintenance. And here you can see I used zip ties again, and what that does is that will simply support the weight. If myself or the cats ever grab onto this and give it a good yank, and it will keep the slip-on from coming out, and that also has worked well. Here you see I'm basically just using more PVC, so the gate valve was threaded, and then this is slip. And then here, right, I'm just connecting, your basic gray flex hose. There's better options to do this, but this is what I used. And you can see here that that's just slip over. It's a really tight fit. You can see here where it bulges out, where it's actually connected. So then here you have the hoses, right? And I have a little gentle sweep to it, and there you can see the sump. I apologize again for the dirt, but this is what you get. So it's interesting, the operation here, how this works, is that, yes baby, is that many sumps, what they do is the intake hoses, as they come in, they drop right into the trickle tower, which is right here, as you can see, right? But this design is slightly different. This is the Aqueon Proflex Model 4, and it comes with 3 sock filters, which I have removed and I'll show you in a minute. But it has these 2 intake towers, and what happens basically is the water flows in here, comes down this intake standpipe, and you can see the bubbles from the water being flown into the sump, and then basically it flows into the chamber, and then it comes out up here, and then it flows right over the trickle plate, and you can see how the water just gently flows right over there. And see, that's just some brand new sponge that I cut just today, so you can see it's nice and clean. When that gets dirty, it's just time to replace it. And here you see a reflection of my cat going nuts here for her attention. Here you see the bio balls in my trickle filter, and you can see the flow of the water as it trickles through the plate, hence the trickle plate. And there's really nothing under there. You can see the egg crate that supports the bio balls. I don't use ceramic rings or anything, very simple. Here is the pre-chamber where ordinarily your filter socks would be. So what would happen is, I apologize for my reflection, what you would ordinarily see is you would have your filter socks in here, the water would flow down here, and then pass through the socks before ever hitting that overflow tray. So that is a good method of micron filtering. However, they tend to get clogged within a day or two, so I just took a couple of big sponge block filters and just crammed them in there. One of the slots I actually just used a carbon pad and I rolled it up, so that allows for some carbon filtration. And then on the outflow side, here you can see that the sump is all open here. I no longer bother trying keep it closed with duct tape or anything, because it didn't seem to make any difference to me with CO2 usage or anything to have it sealed or not. It does have a lid which can easily come off, and you can see that, you know, if you just lift up the filter pad, right, you can see the trickle plate and the water flowing over it, right. It's very easy to just cut another plate. And there's also, you can take that off and you can see where the sock filters were. That far hole there is the one where the carbon pad is. There's my cat coming to check things out. They're very interested in the sump and goings on there. I don't understand the fascination, but whatever. So in any event, the water goes in there, and hopefully the cat will stay out of there. So what'll happen here is you'll see that here's the actual sump area, and there's the main sump pump. That's a MAG 1800 if I remember correctly. Here are some filter bags, and this is all the media that used to be in my original Eheim canisters. You know, they help seed it. You can see here, it looks, I can't remember what the name of it is, but it's all the Eheim media. Here you see what I did here is I tied the filter bags, you know, with Purigen and different things here so they wouldn't float around. Basically what I did is the MAG 18 has only a 3/4 inch outlet. What I did is I connected a 2-inch Y via that 3/4. So then that water flows, you know, from the pump into the Y, which allows more flow, and that is then split into 2 3/4 inch lines. And one goes to one end of the tank and the other goes to the other. And there's my cat watching one of them watching what's going on. And you can see here it's just more PVC and barbed fittings. You know, I find them in any Home Depot or Lowe's for the most part, or your local fish store. And then I just used clear hose. You can see I just went from here, and this goes right up on the inside. And then I just use a basic over the wall tube to do this. The interesting thing I want to point out here is the use of a siphon hole. You see how the water is spitting out there. What'll happen there is if the electricity is turned off and the pump stops, what will happen is the water will drain from the siphon into the sump and overflow if the siphon isn't stopped. What this siphon hole will do is, and I'll demonstrate this in a second, is when the water is turned off, it will suck air into the siphon system and hopefully break the siphon. I have one on the other side. You can see this is a very strong outflow from the siphon hole of water because there's a good flow of water going through it. if you come over to the other side where the other outlet is, you see there's also a siphon hole, but look at the flow is so much less, and that's because there's a 6-foot line that goes from the sump by the time it gets back here. So the flow is a lot less on this side than it is on the other. So what we're going to do here now is I'll show you, here's the level of water in the sump. By the way, here is my CO2 needle wheel in the sump. It runs all the time. Basically, I have it connected to a small piece of behind flex tubing, which then goes around and then comes out into the actual rest of the sump, and then it gets picked up by the main sump pump, which is in there somewhere. So again, I apologize for the reflections. And that's it. The needle wheel pump I run 24/7 because that way when the CO2 turn on and the bubbles start getting injected, it will never freeze the impeller, which has happened every now and then. So here you can see my CO2 and all of that. So what I'm going to do here now is very quickly I'm going to turn off the electricity to the sump, and hopefully it won't overflow, and you'll see what I'm talking about with what happens. And this is a test you need to make when you set up your sump, before you leave it alone for 10 minutes. So here I'm going to turn the water off, and you can hear the siphon. You'll see the level in the sump rise. And hopefully what's happening is only the water that's in the siphon or in the tubes will make it down here, and that the siphon holes will, in fact, cause enough air to be taken into the system to break the siphon. You can see that the water level is slowing. It's not rushing in there, so that's a good sign. Let's go up and take a look at the siphons and see what's happening there. And you can see here that this side there's nothing happening. And you can see that here's the water and the air. So this siphon is completely broken. So there's no water coming in through this line. And you can see a big bubble here. So there's nothing there. So anything coming in is probably coming in from this longer line over here. But if we look, here you can see, right there, you can see the water line. So that siphon is also broken. So now you'll basically nothing's happening. There might be a tiny bit of, there should be no more water movement. Basically, I could sit here for the next several hours, hopefully, and that water level will never overflow this line. And that's what you want to be careful of, because say I had filled up my sump like this before I went away for a day, and 10 minutes after I left, the power turned off. Well, what would have happened is it would have overflowed onto the carpet here, that amount of water. And that's why you need that siphon break. Another way you could do it is you could put an inline check valve in here. However, that's just another touch point to fail. Check valves do fail, and they do need to be replaced. They do work well. I've used them in the past, but a well-placed siphon break should do that for you. So that should be it. It gets pretty darn quiet when it's all off. But here you can see the filter pad and all of that. So that's really it. I hope that was somewhat beneficial to people who are interested in how I set this up. It's very simple. Maintenance is very easy. All I need to do to replace the pad is I have this big, huge amount of filter material that you can just cut to size, and I only paid a few dollars for that. And what you can do is, I never take my own advices, but once you cut one to size, you just cut a bunch of others to that same size, and it takes 2 seconds to pull it out and just replace it and tuck it in there. And that's the easiest maintenance you're ever going to find. Much easier than a canister. Alright, I hope this was, as I said, sorry to babble on, and apologize for the quality of the video and the narration, but it is what it is. Alright, thanks and have a great day.